My name is Samuel Muchui Kilemi. I was born, I think, on 24th of August, 1947. I'm about to make now 75 years in the next 2 weeks because August 24th is the date of my birth. Now, my village was Amatu village, which is in Kianjai location of Tigania West constituency, Meru County. During that time, it was around the early 1940s when my father married my mother, Chiedangata Njiro. She came from Loire area. And my father, Isaiah Ntodirenja, was a businessman, and at times he worked in Nairobi. I knew I was born on that date because my uncle, who was younger than my father, had some little education, so he was able to know the date I was born. My father used to do business all over. In fact, I remember when I was very young, he used to bring us clothes from as far as Tharaka. He was a businessman. And during the emergency, it was around 1952 when they were rounded up. They were put in detention for some time because of emergency regulations. But later on, of course, they were released. We went on like that. My grandfather, I remember my grandfather was Ntonchebere. My grandfather was, in fact, an elder. Was a chief's elder, and he used to do a lot of arbitration work. And I remember when he passed away, I was very young, about 5 years old. He was friendly to the local senior chief, Ntoi. So when he got sick, he sent his jeep. It was a jeep. It came and took him to hospital, but within a short while, they returned with him, of course, having died. But that is the time, the only issue I can remember. I was a bit young by then, and we continued like that. In fact, around 1947, 50 there, my mother passed on. She passed on just after giving birth to my brother Bernard Gituma. My grandmother was called Chantuala Tonchevere. And when my mother passed on, she's the one who took care of us, me and my brother. She was very industrious, and she cared for us all along until sometimes in 1967 when she also passed away. And by then we had grown up. We were already grown up. My grandmother and my grandfather lived at the same place where I was born. That is Amatu village. My grandfather passed on sometimes early in 1950s, and my grandmother passed on in 1967 when I was working in Kirinyaga district. I had started working as a young man after finishing school. They were laid to rest at the same place, that is Amatu village. I know my father married my mother early 1940s, and my mother, of course, was Chiedangata Njiro. My father is Isaiah Ntodirenja. And they were blessed with me, Samuel Muchui Kilemi, and my brother Bernard Gituma. We continued together with my brother and under the care of my grandmother. Now, my mother, I'm told she was a very beautiful lady, and she used to do farming like other ladies of her time. But I remember, I'm told that once they had gone to harvest some millet, they came now to thresh the millet with the other ladies from the area. That's the time she was given something to drink, and thereafter she passed on. The issue went on through the elders' courts, the local elders' court, and those who were involved, I think they were punished, I am told. And I remember that's how it was. It was sad. My father used to stay away. And in fact, I'm told my father almost committed suicide when he heard that my mother had passed on. So that's the story. We grew up. I went to school, Kenjai Primary School. That was around 1954. I remember around 1958 or 59, while at Kenjai Primary School, the school organized an educational tour to Thika. You know, those tours were very, very popular those days. I paid for the trip. Everybody was paying for the trip to Thika. But what happened is that I used to sleep at my grandmother's house, which was a small hut. That is a place where it was so smoky. And in fact, we used to sleep with even goats and chicken within. So that night, on the eve of the trip, I overslept. When I woke up, the bus had already gone. That day, I really cried the whole day because I missed the trip. From that day, I promised never to oversleep again. So we stayed in Kenjai Primary School until we did what was called the KCPE. That is the one we do before going to secondary school. During that time, in early primary school, that's the time I used to come all the way from Kenjai, Amato village, to this place in Mbeo, where I am now, Mbeo. I'm now in Mbeo ward. Mbeo ward is in Tigania West Steel constituency of Meru County. So, accompanied by my grandmother, I used to walk all the way from Amato village to here, which is over 15 kilometers. We could come in the morning, she could do some farm, and I would assist her, and then we go back again. That is the time you remember a bag of maize was costing only 6 shillings. A bag of maize. This place was full of wild animals. We used to walk through bushy places to come to this place from Kenjai. I got experience of carrying even loads from here from Beo to Amato village. And we continued like that until school life was also a bit difficult. I know we used to be caned when we were unable to answer questions correctly. We would be caned by teachers. Other teachers resorted in biting our fingers. We could bite our fingers, and one of my best friends, who was also a student, devised a way to discourage the teachers from biting our fingers. One day he smeared his fingers with pilipili, and well, it was of course not good for the teacher, and he was of course beaten thoroughly. We continued like that, and I remember when In 1961, when we did our examination, it was during mafuriko time. There were floods all over the country, including our school was flooded. We did the exams and water was in the classrooms, but I managed to pass well. We were only 3 from that primary school who went to middle school. That was in 1962 when I went to middle school. I remember having done well in the examinations held in 1961 at Kianjai Primary School. In 1962, I went to Form 1 at middle school. And during that time, I was still at Kianjai. And then a few years later, we moved from Kianjai to this place, to Mbeu, which is in Mbeu Ward, Tigania West. Now, before, during that time, you know, we used to have handy time at middle school. It was one of the best schools in the country. In fact, it was the school of choice by that time, and it was the only school anyway. And all the it was like our alliance in the region, and only the bright ones could go there. So I'm proud I managed to go there, middle school, and I had a bit of hard time because I was very young. I was young. From 1947 to 62 is barely not many years. And by that time I was not initiated, you remember. And those boys who were initiated, they used to beat those who were not. So I had to insist that that should be done on me, and I finished the first term at middle school. Then the second time I made sure I went through the process at home, and I was comfortable thereafter. I remember very well in middle school I used to be in the Kiuna house. We had 4 houses in middle school, those dormitories rather. And one of them was my house, which was Kiuna yellow. It was a yellow house. Then we had Gaita, which was a red house. Then we had Komenjoe, which was blue, and Mogongai, which was green. And in school, I was a sportsman. I used to play badminton very well. In fact, throughout the time I was there, badminton cup did not leave Kiuna house. And I also used to do athletics, like in javelin. I used to win prizes. And I remember very well, at one time, I also knew literature quite well. Apart from acting someplace, like the one I remember very well called As You Like It by William Shakespeare. We acted it so well that we went even to act it to Nkobo High School and Kangaroo High School. We wanted to perform. We went to perform to them on that play. I played the role of Corin, who was, I think, a shepherd in that play. Now, other issues I remember, there's a time when we had to write an essay. It was a competition which was being rewarded. I had a good handwriting. I wrote an essay, and they were comparing the handwriting and the content. And I won a very big dictionary that time. I got a prize and I was happy. I liked literature in middle school. And we were taught by a few African, I would name them, a few Africans, some Asians and Europeans, and even Americans. I remember one of our teachers was Timothy Gathongo. He was from Kirinyaga district, and he taught us very well. The other teacher was Mr. Ndewa, and those were the only African teachers we had at that time. Remember, it was from 1962 to 1965. We had also some American teachers like Mr. Shuhart. I remember he came to Mero School a few years back, and he gave them quite a donation there. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend. He wanted to see the old boys, but I wasn't able to attend, but he came. Other teachers were an Asian, I can't remember the name. There was an Asian teacher. Our principal, by then we used to call him headmaster, was Mr. Weisler. Mr. Weisler was very disciplinarian, and our adjutant was called Fabian. Now, our headmaster was a veteran soldier in the World War, so he kept in discipline in our school. The school was a mixed school. A few girls who were staying at the Kagak House across the road, and boys were staying in the main Mero School compound. We went on like that, and well, we did not have any strike at all that time. Although the food, it wasn't good anyway. You can't compare school food with the home food. We used to eat beans and maize, githeri. Sometimes porridge. We used to have a cook who used to, when he was on duty, that cook used to cook very bad porridge with a lot of not ready. So we used to nickname Makindi, that cook. We stayed there until I did my Cambridge examination when I was in Form 4. I remember classmates who went on to do very well in life. Even locally, I know Justice Kithelawi is from Yadhen across. I know Joseph Gatobu from Kithirone. I know even Mr. Murira, who is a doctor. Stephen Kinote, also a doctor and a professor. And many people who are my classmates have done very well. I also went on to become a PPO. I would like to say that our exams were set in Britain. They were marked there. There was no leakage during our time. We could even do oral test. And I'm glad I was able to get Division 1. It was rare to find in those days. And I managed to apply for various places, vacancies, and eventually I landed with a company called the Cotton Lint and Seed Marketing Board. That was in 1966. In fact, what happened is that one of our family friends, the late Johnson Kiraithe, had come from America. He had gone to study abroad in America. He came, and having known me, I told him I had passed well, but I didn't have any job to do. he took me all the way to Embu, where he was working as an assistant agriculture officer. I stayed with him for a while in his residence at Enna in Embu, at a camp owned by British American Tobacco. I stayed with him. He made the connections, and I joined the Cotton Lint and Seed Marketing Board. That's the time I was taken for training at Msabaha. Msabaha is in Malindi, Coast Province, or the Kilifi district anyway. I went there for a training, initial training, as a cotton recorder. We used to be a cotton recorder or researcher. And then after the course, I found myself back in Geaki here, Geaki nearby. There was a county council farm where we used to do some experiments on the farm, on the cotton plant, applying the insecticides and knowing what type of insecticide and what would make the crop grow well, and advise the farmers accordingly. So when at Geaki, that's the time I left and went to Kirinyaga. I was transferred to Kirinyaga district, that is Wanguru. Wanguru is just on the middle of the Mwea, near Mwea. That was around 1968 there. I stayed there. During that time, that is when my grandmother passed on, between 1967 and 1968. I remember when I was at Yaki, I used to apply to various places for looking for a job. One of the places I applied for was Kenya School of Law, as it was known by then. I was called for an interview. I attended the interview. They informed me. Thereafter, I had the pass and they called me. I didn't go because my brother was in secondary school, and I thought if I go there, I would miss something little to give him. In fact, I used to take care of my brother. I used to provide him with quite a lot. I used to send even money. That time we took the risk of sending money in envelopes. And I used to do that very often. So I didn't go to School of Law for the first time. And then when he stayed for a few months, they called me again. They told me, still your position is still there, come. I just ignored, and thereafter I continued with what I was doing. That is the time I saw an advertisement while in Kirinyaga district, working for the Cotton Lint and Seed Marketing Board as a researcher. I saw an advertisement about recruitment of cadets in the Kenya Police Force by then. I attended the interview at the police headquarters in Nairobi. And it was funny. They went thoroughly through the interview to remove our clothes. Every part of the clothes we had to remove, and they were very anxious to check on everything, even a small scar. And I passed, and I was able to go through the interview. And when I went back to my workstation, that was Kirinyaga district at Wanguru. Wanguru is in fact Wanguru. That's the place. I gave my employer a 24-hour notice. I wrote a letter and quit. I went to Kenya Police College on the 1st of August, 19. 1969. Just between 1967 and 1968, the time I was in Yaki, and when I was being transferred to Kirinyaga district, that's the time my son Peter Muchui Kilemi was born on 12th of June, 1968. What happened is that I was anxious to get some job, proper job. I was not satisfied with being a researcher. It was not demanding as such. And when I saw that advertisement, it was attractive. They were offering much, twice than what I was getting. Because at the Cotton Linen Seed Marketing Board, we were paying 443 shillings. Imagine that money, we could use it, and I couldn't finish it anyway. We used to go all the way to buy shirts at Embu from Wanguru and do a bit of other things. And the money by then was quite a lot, and although it is small these days. So what attracted me was the money. At the police college, they were offering around 800 there. So I thought it was a better opportunity for me. And that's why I joined the college, staying there for 60 months. 60 months. The people who were interviewing me at the college, before I went to the college, was only one African, and the others were, there was a European and an African. And those are the people from the college who were interviewing us. So I went to the college, 1969, as I've said, and we started at direct entry inspector. That is, I didn't go through the constable ranks and these other ranks. Went directly to inspector's rank, because of the education, and worked with the Aparastato. By then, the Cotton Linen Seed Marketing Board was Aparastato for about 2 years. Those were the requirements. So our teachers were, there were, of course, Europeans. That was before. We had again a lot of officers in the college, African officers. And mostly they were Europeans, and the lower ranks, of course, fellow Africans. Our commandant was David Hewson. He was a European. And even the deputy was also. So we continued, and our director of study was somebody called Noah Sharif, because we used to stay in the best place in the college, the best mess in the college. That was a mess. And I remember we were taught all types of things, like even musketry. Musketry is shooting, how to handle weapons, and the law in general. And that time we did not wear trousers. It was patties and the boots. The trousers were introduced only to gazetted officers. Gazetted officers were superintendents and above. Those were introduced way back later in 1976, around there. That's the time so things were like that. There were a lot of parades. And I remember that during the passing out parade was in January 1970, having stayed there from August. So 1970, the late Honorable Chief Justice Kitili Mwendwa was the guest of honor during the parade. And we were posted outside to other outside stations. I remember I was posted to Parklands police station. I know when I was in the secondary school, I used to stay with my uncle, Joy Romborogi, the late uncle. He had migrated from Kianjai to Igoji, and he was a clerk and an administration clerk. So I used to go and stay with him during the school holidays. That time, movement was difficult, the roads were very difficult. And I know the only means of transport was a short chassis Land Rover, owned by the chief of the area, Igoji Chief Konde. No, I remember the number was KNGS 827. It was a Land Rover. And that ferried us from Meru town to Igoji. Sometimes the bridges, we had to go across the bridges which had been swept by the water. And well, in Igoji, in fact, I remember seeing very many issues like, there was Simon Kamundi was an assistant minister from the area. He was a politician. And I remember attending his funeral. Unfortunately, he had an accident, sometimes way back in Muranga area. And I knew them, I knew the family. And I remember also during 1963, during the independence, Igoji town was full of people who had come out of the forest. I remember during the Independence Day, I was with my uncle in Igoji, and it was in December, of course, 12th December 1963, when it was announced that all those people who were in the forest, the Mau people who were fighting for independence, they should come out. In fact, many came out to Igoji market. They carried their guns, and they would go to the shops around and demand everything they wanted. In fact, they used to go and fuel their vehicle without paying, and many other things. I witnessed this, but eventually things cooled down, and they were rehabilitated, and things went on well. I remember some very senior Mau people were from Meru, and in fact, Nyambene was one of their areas where they used to operate from, Nyambene Forest. We had people like Mwariama, of course. I had seen him, and also by Mungi was from Kobo area. I remember those times people would not pass because he used to somehow harass people. And I remember he refused to surrender. And these things I remember. He went back to the forest. Unfortunately, he was hunted, and he was killed in the forest because he had defied the government order. So things went on like that, and it was an experience. We were young, very young people, but we could see these things happening. When I was posted to Parklands police station in Nairobi area, I was given the duties of 999 car commander, we used to patrol the area, the whole of Parklands area, which included even Loresho, as far back as even Kabete, and Udero areas. So we used to answer calls of crime and attend to scenes of crime and even accidents. We were doing all sorts of things. That is the time I stayed for a while, and I then was nominated to attend a CND prosecutions course. I went to the training for the prosecution course at the CND training school. This is located in South DC. I finished my course there, and I was posted to be a prosecutor at Kakamega Law Course in the Western Province. I stayed in Kakamega for about 2 years. Then in 1972, I was transferred to Nairobi Law Courts, Prosecutions Branch. I stayed there, and we used to handle very many cases, prosecuting cases. I remember when I was at the Nairobi Law Courts, maybe around 1975, I was transferred to CND training school as an instructor. I stayed at the CND training school, which is situated in South DC, Nairobi. There I stayed for some time, and I used to stay with Peter. He was very young. He was a young boy. And in fact, he was taken care of by a boy from Mudhara. I had employed him, Kabira, Kondi Kabira. He took care of him. Even when I went for 6 months away for a course, that boy was very good. He took care of Peter. While at the CND training school, as an instructor, I was teaching Evidence Act and Criminal Procedure Code. I was teaching junior officers up to the rank of a sergeant. And we were also teaching them how to go about investigations and visits at the scenes of crime, what evidence to look for. And thereafter, I attended an interview for going to Kenya Police College for a senior training wing course. That was way back 1976. So I went there and I stayed at the college until we finished after about 6 months. I stayed at the Nairobi Law Courts for quite a time, and I knew a friend from near home who was working as a meat inspector. He was called Windo Mungori, the late Windo Mungori. And he was my friend and introduced me to Lucy Kadia, who was a student at Machakos Teachers Training College. I drove there with Mr. Mungori, the late Mungori. She introduced me to the late wife Lucy, and thereafter, everything is history. We continued very well until we married on 27th of December 1979. I tell you, that time I was stationed at Nyeri as a deputy OCPD and moved now out of Nairobi Law Court after attending a higher training course at the Kenya Police College. I attended that one having attained the rank of a chief inspector. And I was to advance to a superintendent. So I attended that course in 1976. After the course, that's the time I was posted to Nyeri as a deputy OCPD. So while at Nyeri, I remember that's the time I started making the arrangements for the wedding. I had an old Peugeot 404, KHD 844. And I started my journey to come home for the wedding. In fact, I think the wedding was to be on 27th of December. It was to be held at this place we are. This place, the old house was standing here. So, while at Nyeri, I had to drive, I think on 25th of December, just after, during the Christmas time I drove. On the way, the vehicle broke down at Nyeri, Karatina. That Peugeot of mine, it broke down at Karatina. I stayed there for a while, having it repaired, and then I continued. I arrived late on 26th. By then, there were a few issues here and there. I found even my father had been arrested with the allegation that they had planted coffee in an area in a zone where coffee should not be planted. Very funny charges. We moved the spin and then he came out and it was rainy. It was very wet and we arranged for the wedding and it was successful. It was successful after all. And thereafter, of course, I continued in Nyeri for a while. The preparation of the wedding, which took place in 1979, I was away on duty in Nyeri. And I used to send what was required to my brother and my father. They were the ones who were taking care of all the arrangements. And things went on well. My marriage was solemnized at Amatu Catholic Church. That is near Lucy's home. And from there we came here. This is where we settled. Went on back to my job, and I would come now and then very often to, of course, visit the home, and she would also come. After the wedding, which was held on 27th of December 1979, I and my wife settled at this place, Kemirei village, which has transited into now Resi Lake village. And I had bought this land because I used to stay with my father just at the old place, just a kilometer away from here. And the place was too small for me and my other siblings. So me and my brother Bernard, I purchased this land. It is me who purchased it and I divided it. I gave him free of charge, half of it. In fact, about total about 8 acres. We divided into 2. So yes, 4 are 4. I didn't charge him anything. And we have been together with my brother for so long. We love each other because we were left only 2 of us, my mother, when she passed away, you know. Now, this is a place where I left my wife. She was a teacher. She had started teaching at the local Kimeri Primary School. Me, I went back to my job at Nyeri. Nyeri is in Central Province. I was the deputy OCPD there. And that is the time I remember I stayed there for a while until I was again transferred. The issue of our land is that other brothers and were left in the old farm. Me and Bernard shifted here, and as I've said, we divided it. And since then, I've settled here. That is where the marriage took place. And I was comfortable. Now, in the course of our marriage, we were blessed with the following children. Our firstborn was the late Rebecca Kawiria, followed by Evelyn Kathambi. Then we came to Sylvia Mutwiri. Thereafter, we also were blessed with Ken and Mutembe. I was the deputy OCP in Nyeri. That is 1978. That's the time when the first president of the Republic of Kenya, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, passed on. That was on 22nd of August, 1978. I was working in Nyeri as a deputy OCPD, and you know, Central Province is one of the places where you had a stronghold, political stronghold, of course. And it was very, very shocking because people could not believe it. But there were no chaos in Nyeri. We did not experience any chaos at all. And in fact, immediately thereafter, it did not take long. The second president, His Excellency Daniel Arap Moi, took over. And in fact, he toured Nyeri after taking over. And of course, was even campaigning because having taken over, there is that duration of 90 days to be prepare for elections. So he came around there, and I witnessed these things in Nyeri. There were really major changes in our country. And I didn't stay long in Nyeri, maybe around 19... I was, yes, I was back in Nairobi thereafter. I didn't stay long, and then my duties were in charge of the prosecutions branch. That, of course, it meant all over the country. I was in charge all over the country. And I could visit other branches, prosecution branches all over the country. Because I used to drive there and visit and make a report on those visits and give it to the director of CID. And of course, eventually to the Commissioner of Police. And things went on well, they went on well. And I didn't move out of Nairobi for many years. I remember I prosecuted very, very big cases there, major cases. I had commendations on those prosecutions, written commendations, of course, with the Commissioner of Police. Then Bernard Hinga, he was our Commissioner of Police by then. When Lucy got sick, that was way back in 1993. I was still in Nairobi, and I remember I came and took her to hospital. First, we went to Forces Memorial Hospital in Nairobi. After some examinations by the doctor, she stayed there for a short. The condition did not improve. I arranged and took her to Nairobi Hospital. I knew most senior doctors there, some of who were with me in Imero School, like in Dr. Mwongela. He was a specialist on that line of ailment. And she was given all the necessary care, really, but unfortunately, well, she passed on, and that was in 1993. It was 1993. I can confirm that. Oh, she was buried here, at home here. Life continued like that with the children. Me, I used to stay with my children, even when my wife was alive, Lucy was alive. When the children grew a bit, I used to go with them wherever I went, wherever I was transferred, be it in Nairobi or elsewhere, and take them to school there. And she didn't have much burden on that. And the last born, late Kennedy Mutembe, was in fact born on 30th of April 1987 at Nairobi Hospital. And I remember that day it was very, very, very wet in Nairobi. And taken the mother there. It was very wet. We were waiting in Nairobi in the city center with the friends. And then she rang me and told me she had a baby boy. We rushed to the hospital. All the roads were flooded in Nairobi, actually. And when we reached there, and it was a nice thing. And it's unfortunate that she did not stay long. But I'm glad the children are doing well. Those who are alive, they are doing very well. And I can only praise God. Western Province, stationed at Kakamega as the Provincial Criminal Investigations Officer, in short PCIO. I was in charge of the province on the matters relating to serious crime. I know that is a time when our President and Director General CID, Mr. George Kinoti, was working under me. And I know we worked together, being a junior to me. And in fact, we made a breakthrough on cases involving corruption at the border of Kenya and Uganda, at Busia, and the other place called Lwahaha. There were allegations that a lot of money was lost at those offices, at the customs offices, and the government was not receiving its dues. So I assigned him the job to go undercover and investigate what was happening there. As a result of me being directed by the Provincial Security Committee. I remember our PC, the Provincial Commissioner, was Mr. Yusuf Haji, the late Yusuf Haji, Senator for Garissa. And he investigated properly, and they saved the government a lot of revenue, because the recommendation which came up was that instead of custom duties being paid at the border, they were to be charged at the factory. And that saved the government a lot of money. And in fact, when the Director General was here the other day, he had come to visit me as a friend on 15th of July last month. He visited me, and he mentioned about that report which saved the government a lot of money. And I'm glad that I was able to assist such a person to be so senior today. Now, from Western Province, that is Kakamega, I was posted back to Nairobi at the CND headquarters. I remember I worked there as a staff officer and administration for the DCI, for the director of CID. Continued for that time, and that is the time, of course, I met my present wife. I would like now to introduce my dear wife, Agnes Kadhambi, whom I met around the year 1994. Here she is with me. From that time, we have been together happily. God has blessed us with the 3 children. We have the first daughter, Jacqueline Kawira, and the second and third born are twins, namely Vincent Mutedia and Lillian Gacheri, who were born on 10th of April 1997. They were born at MP Shah Hospital. And when I went to visit my wife at the hospital, I was preparing to pay bills for one child. And then I was told they are twins. With my friend Frederick Medeo Kimboi, we had to rush again to look for more money. And then we paid the bills and came out of the hospital with the two twins and the mother. I returned to Nairobi from Western Province. I was given the post of in charge of prosecution branch in the country, and my office was at the CID headquarters, where I stayed for a short time, and then was transferred to Central Province as the deputy PPO. I stayed in Central Province for a while, and we stayed there with the other officers, and we saw a few things here and there pertaining to our duties, until I attended a course. This is called the Senior Commander's Course. It is attended by people of senior assistant commissioners of police, or rather PPOs. Those are the officers who attend that course. And I remember when we were closing the course, our commissioner of police then, Mr. Duncan Wachira, called me and told me to report it to one Haron Mwau, who had been appointed as the director of then CASA, Kenya Anti-Corruption Authority. I reported there as in charge of investigations in that authority. And our offices were at the Post Bank, just off Koinange Street, Post Bank House. We used to do investigations into serious cases of corruption. And I remember one case in mind. We went to Kenya Revenue Authority. We got some suspects there. I won't mention the names. And we arrested them in connection with the corruption cases. But no sooner than we had them in custody, the director of CND then, Mr. Noah Arab Tor, rang me and told me to release them immediately. You see, we had no alternative but to release them. I don't know the reason, but we had to obey. Later on, our director of Kenya Anti-Corruption, Mr. John Harun Mwau, was suspended. And we and several police officers attached to him, me being in charge of them, we were all told to go and report back to our former stations, and ceremoniously. So we did that. Thereafter, a commission of inquiry was established. It was set up to look into the efficiency of our director, whether he was efficient to run the authority or not. I remember there were 3 judges who were appointed to hear to lead the commission. I gave evidence in that commission of inquiry. Other people also gave evidence. I remember our then director of CASA called very senior people on constitutional issues, including Professor Kibuda Kibwana. I saw them come and give evidence. But at the end of it, our director was not allowed to continue. He was removed. So that's what I can remember. Thereafter, I was again transferred to, I think it's Western Province. I went to Western Province as a deputy PPO. That was after 1998. I think it was 1999. And I went to Western Province as a deputy PPO. I remained there for almost a year. And thereafter, I was told I should report it to Northeastern Province as a PPO. It was a promotion, and I couldn't argue about it. It was on promotion basis. In fact, I stayed for a while without going there until I was told you must go there by the shortest time possible. So what we did, we arranged with the Kenya Police Air Wing. I know Mr. Chege was the commandant. I took my luggage to the Wilson Airport. Within a few hours, we were at Garissa. I reported and told my boss that I had already reported there. I don't know the reason. Maybe they did not want the officer who was there to continue. But all the same, I stayed in Northeastern. It was challenging, of course. We couldn't travel without adequate security. And we always prayed before we left because we didn't know whether we would come back or not. But God was with us. I finished my tour in Northeastern Province. And within a year, I found myself again transferred to Coast Province as the same capacity as a PPO. I was there and I retired eventually in 2002, July 2002, having attained the age of 55 years. When I was in Coast Province, stationed at Mombasa, I conducted a matrimonial ceremony between me and Agnes on the 24th of August 2002. I used to stay at Kisingo Estate, which was along seaside. It was on the seaside and the coast there. And I remember when I retired, I didn't stay even one day in a government house. Somebody wanted to take over that house. In fact, they wanted to give money, and I said no. I would like to say, I didn't involve myself in any form of corruption. And I was confident with my job. And even when I left the place, I think people were happy of what I did there. And they did a party, a big party for me. Even in Garissa, they also made a party for me. And it's a time we organized a small function. People asking, why should this man retire and the other one there in charge of the province is still old and he has not retired? And those were the comments of people. So when I retired, I opened an office at the post office building. It's in Mombasa. I stayed there for a while doing even some computer services and forwarding. And I closed the business and returned home in, of course, Meru here at Kemere village. I decided because I saw the pension, which was not much by those days, was getting depleted. And then I decided to put up a private school. I put the building in 2003. We started the same year because it was built very fast. Within 3 months, we built the school. We got even the first lot from standard 1 to standard 4 because there was another school nearby which and closed. The school was put in another plot of mine just near home, just 200 meters from home. Name of the school is Lake Academy. We stayed. I've been running it for the last 17 years. About 17 years. We have been running it. I remember that I started the Lake Academy, which is a private primary school, immediately after retirement. And we started from taking children from the nursery to standard 4 at the first intake. And even my two twins children, that is Vincent Mutwiri and Lillian Gasheri, studied there from nursery up to standard 8. And they did well to qualify them to go to good secondary schools. So it has been running since then. And I'm sure it has made an impact to the community around. Apart from that, I've been doing small businesses here and there, and also in involvement in community affairs. At one time, I was in charge of our division's community policing program, which I ended for almost 10 years, and then I retired also from that. I don't only retire from civil service, even retire from community work when we have done enough. Other things which I would like to mention, as a retired officer, I've joined other retired officers in forming what is called NAPOC. In full, it is National Association of Retired Police Officers in Kenya. We are now currently having over 200 members of retired police officers, all ranks. We allow membership to those who retired honorably, not who are dismissed or who left the service badly. We take the best. And we have also, it's national. As the name says, we have national offices in Nairobi, handled by senior retired officers. And presently, the chairman is none other than the former commandant of National Youth Service, Nathan Japhet Mwania, who was also Deputy Commissioner of Police. And all the retired commissioners of police are trustees of this group. And every county has got a chapter. Me, I belong to Meru chapter. Our chairman is Charles Kinoti Narangwi, retired senior police officer. He was a PPO, even Nyanza. I'm the vice chairman. And we have catered for various projects, like we have invested in buying plots near Isiolo. We have also invested in security and consultancy services. We have also done last respect insurance for our members. But most of all, the most important one is for the welfare. You know, our group is composed of elderly people. So we contribute some money monthly. We meet monthly and contribute welfare money, which is used to visit some of our members when they are in need of assistance, like sickness, death. Those are the major things we really center on. So when we visit a person where the spouse, it caters for the spouse and the member. So, and children, of course. So when any member has an issue, maybe demise, we give 15,000 shillings to the member, and the spouse we give 10,000 to say Paula to them. For sickness, we give 10,000 to members and 5,000 to spouses. So recently we launched our security and consultancy service, and we are doing well. We have employed several security guards. We have employed several security guards, and we paid them through our contributions. We contributed to form the security consultancy services. And I remember last December we launched it. We have even acquired a vehicle. So that is what I'm involved in. I'm not idle. I would like to say that in the course of my life, I've been saddened by the loss of several members of my family. In fact, to start with, my wife Lucy Kadia did not stay very long with me. When she left me in the year 1993. Of course, this loss was unrepairable, and I have no blame to anybody, but God is good. He meant she left beautiful children, whom I've referred to earlier on, whom I'm proud of. The other thing which hit me was the loss of my daughter, Rebecca Kawiri. That, the firstborn, was in fact named after my late mother, and a special relation with her because of that. And I used to visit her even when she was at the Kenya Medical Training School here in Kenyatta Hospital, all the way from Garissa, I remember. And when later on I was in other places. And I used to follow her studies and even attended her graduation. And she was named the best student in chemistry. I remember very well, and I'm sure she had very good opportunities in her life. The other loss I know is of a son, Kennedy Mutembe. Was very young, and I'm sorry I lost him also. I also lost my uncle, Joel Omboroki, just a few years ago. He lived in Negoji, and I used to go and stay with him during my holidays in secondary school time. I have also lost my sister called Nkatha. She was married away from here. And again, I lost my father. My father lost last year on the end of, I think on 26th of August. That's when last year he passed on, and we buried him on the end of September this year. No, last year. The other loss which has devastated me is of my aunt, Monjiro. That is the one who really took care of us when we were young, me and my brother. We were very young, and she took all the pain to take care of us until we grew up. Those are the losses. In 1982, I was stationed at Nairobi Law Court, prosecution's branch, when the weekend of 31st July and 1st of August that year was a weekend at the end of the month. But I know, like any other person, I used to go out on weekends and socialize with other people, my friends. But that weekend I did not go out. I didn't go out as usual. And then late at night on 1st of August, I used to stay at Kariako, the civil servants' house is there, near the Methodist church, which is not very far from Isli Air Force Base. And the route to The Air Force Base, of course, passes near where I used to stay. So I heard sounds of gun, heavy guns, artillery. I was surprised and woke up. Of course, we couldn't go out. It was at night. It was on a Sunday morning. And when it came early in the morning, we realized that there was something wrong, and in fact it was announced that the government had been taken over by the army. I know we were scared a lot, we being in the police, of course, because they were told to be like civilians. And we just remained indoors. We did not dare to go out. I used to stay at that place anyway. And but when the day during around the midday, we dared to go out a bit within the estate. We could see some soldiers from the air base, especially near Kariakoo Market. They used to come and slap people, take over their vehicles, especially Asians, and drive off with the vehicles. They were shooting everywhere. Later on in the evening, we saw other soldiers chasing the other. Some soldiers chasing other soldiers. So these were the people now from the army who had come to overcome the Air Force people. And they didn't continue until evening at about 5 when on the TV we saw President Moi saying the government is now in control. Then we were relieved. So that was a scaring time. I remember the following few days in Nairobi, things were very, very tough. People used to walk to the offices carrying ID cards. As the in charge of prosecutions in Nairobi, law courts, I was in charge of many serious cases, criminal cases, which of course came from police stations for us to prosecute. And I know I handled so many cases, prominent cases, which were defended by prominent lawyers who are surviving even today. I don't want to name names, but they are there. If they are there, I know. But all the cases which were brought to us under my supervision, if the cases had evidence, there was no case which I could lose. However, prominent lawyer defended it. I did it, and I have many commendations on that. So I'm not boasting, but that is a reality. I did my best, and I'm proud of it. Well, I remember there were many cases involving even heroin and even gold from South Africa. All those things were kept by me as exhibits. And nobody would tamper with them. And I think transparency played a great role in my duties there. And we made convictions. I remember even there was a case which I did, and I personally prosecuted, whereby a certain advocate and refused to release a client's money. That case involved a person who was injured by post office vehicle. That person was seriously injured, and that advocate kept the money thinking that person would pass on. But it didn't. Until the then Attorney General was very much annoyed They ordered me to personally prosecute the kids. I did it well until there was a conviction. But during the sentencing, the Attorney General came in person. It was Guy Mully by then. He came in person to submit so that a deterrent sentence could be given. He submitted, and the guy was put in for 5 years. This is a case I did, and I remember it very well. I was present there. There was another case which I also prosecuted. A certain councillor from the then Nairobi City Council had defrauded some people, issuing licenses on the pretext that they would give them kiosks. We used the money and they did not, he defrauded them. Eventually, the councillor was supported by very powerful politicians. They didn't want them to be charged. The case and a lot of obstacles. But I did it until it was concluded and there was a conviction. The magistrate who was in charge of that case is now and a big political figure. And that magistrate sentenced the councillor to 12 months imprisonment. That was before a national day which is celebrated. Now, to the surprise of the magistrate, she saw that councillor the following day instead of him having gone to prison. I tell you, the magistrate got annoyed. She called me, she asked me about it. I said, I didn't know how he came out. So the magistrate got annoyed and she resigned. I know that is a fact, and I know, I don't want to name names, but let it be like that. During the time I was at the locus, I was also selected to attend a sort of a seminar in the US. That was, I think 1989. I was accompanied by the state council called Peter Mwenesi and the chief magistrate in the locus, Mr. Mango, Joseph Mango. I was in charge of anti-narcotics and branch of C&D headquarters, Mr. the late Masemo, Kimanthi Masemo, and myself. We were 4. We went from east coast of America, that is, we landed in New York. I went to various counties. There were also states, various states. From New York, we went to Memphis. Memphis is another county. From there, we went to San Diego, it's in South California. From there, we went to Denver in Colorado. We ended back at Boston. Boston is also in the eastern coast of America. During that stay, the reason for our going there was to learn how dangerous drugs can do to human beings. We went to rehabilitation centers wherever we went in those states, and we could see that those who are getting rehabilitated, they are really in bad forms. So drugs are dangerous, and they have made they have made a very bad impact in the American society as of that time. That's why I think even in our country we should not allow these drugs really. We should fight the presence of these drugs in our country. We returned after about 3 weeks. We had a lot of to learn, and we had to write a letter, a note, we call it. We wrote a report on what we had learned so that it could be included during even the teaching and the combat of these cases involving drugs. In fact, we even took part in operations which they did there, nabbing those drug dealers. And we saw them doing it. They are a bit professional, of course. And we brought the ideas here. So we came back and we continue that way. During the course of my duty as a police officer, I've served in many places and gone through promotions and until to the very top of Deputy Commissioner of Police. That is the rank, but well, the designation is a provincial police officer by then. And as I said, I've got even many commendations written by my seniors during the performance of my duties. And on top of that, I've got 2 state commendations. The first one came when I was promoted to be a senior assistant commissioner of police. This should have been about 5 years before I retired. And it was a Distinguished Service Medal, DSM. The second one was just 2.5 years before I retired, when I attained the rank of Deputy Commissioner of Police, and that was Moran of the Burning Spear, MBS. I'm entitled to use those commendations after my name, because it is even in Kenyan Gazette, and I'm allowed to do that after my name. DSM and MBS. I would like to add that during my 3 years service in the police force, both in the inspectorate and the gazette and the ranks, I did my job well. There's no time I got any warning letter or any disciplinary action for anything I did concerning my duties. I was fair to those who worked above and under me, and that kept me going. In fact, my discharge certificate, when everybody retire, police officers retire, they get a discharge certificate, which I have. It shows exemplary service. So I can say that certificate shows what type of a person I was. Fairness is the best deal, I think, in any employment. I know that socially I like to watching TV games like wrestling. I also like the good music, especially country music by people like Jim Reeves, Kenny Rogers, Don Williams, and other singers like the ABBA, the Seekers of Australia, and many others. And well, apart from that, I liked playing darts. Especially in Nairobi, we used to go for competitions, and our club used to win many cups. I knew how to throw darts, and that kept me busy. I think socializing with friends, and well, here at home, of course, there isn't much, but I like to be in a rural, peaceful environment, and I'm happy, especially when my daughters bring their children. They come and they see me. They love me. Oh, my grandchildren like me. I don't know why. But they like me and I also like them. And recently I got a great grandson, which I'm proud of. I've lived to see those generations. And I think that's what keeps me alive. Apart from the support I get from my children, I know I'm able to stay long because I have a peace of mind, even from other members of my family. I have nothing to complain about. And I always wish them well. And there's a saying which I've always told my children, that the love of a parent, it keeps on growing like a beard. It keeps on growing. So my love for my children keeps on growing. And I've always considered them part of me and equal. And their spouses, of course. I'm at peace with myself. Thank you. I would like to say that when I'm next to God, the Creator, I will whisper in His ear to bless my children because they love me as their father and their mother. Amen. I would like to say that the two departed children were loved by me so much that I had a lot of future plans for them. But since that happened, you see, the life must continue, and I know nobody will live forever, but it's sad to see that is the parents who are burying the children instead of children burying parents. But that's the destiny which we cannot prevent. And that is one part of my life which almost drove me to madness. In fact, if I did not have a strong heart, I would have had a lot of effects on those departures. So I pray God will spare me any other calamity, so that He allows us to continue together for a long, long time to come without any issue of that sort in the near future. For my children, I repeat and say that I love them in equal measures, and I'll start with Peter. Peter Kilemi. I know he's a professional in his work. He's liked by both his junior and seniors. He's commendable that way. I would urge him to keep the good work and also keep his family together as I've kept mine together, because family is the best thing one has. Having said that about my son Peter, I could not forget his wife. She's a senior officer and very dedicated. I know she is able to do well with support. And children, Melissa, she's also there. I'm sure she'll have a permanent job to do. Diana as well, with her son and Kerian, her son Kerian. They are beautiful children. I love them all, and I'm sure they'll be comfortable and they'll do well in the future. For Evelyn Kadhambi, I know she's a professional and articulate in her duties. I know she's happy with her family. Her husband, Ian Mutwiri. Children start with Eden. I go to Erin and Ellie. Those are treasures, and you get them well. And they're bright. They're bright children. I know they have got a high IQ. No wonder even the parents also have got a high IQ. It goes without a saying. For Sylvia Mutwiri, I know she's also very bright and she's professional in her international job. In fact, she used to top at Kiriene. She used to top of all wonders. And I would like also to know that I have them in my heart. I love them. I love her with her husband, their children, McKenna, and we have Bella and Sam. I have, of course, Jacqueline Kawira. She is okay. She is quite well, and she is faithful, and I know she can be trusted in her work. I bless her, let her continue that way, and God will reward her. With her husband, Bidan, And you can see the two children. There's got Ella and Paul. They were here the other day and I was very happy with them, together with all the other children. And let them do well in whatever they do with the support of their parents. I can't forget Mutwiri. He's a young bachelor. I bless him to try work hard and secure employment somewhere, put things very serious, and I'm sure he will make it because he has got adequate education. He's now over 24, he's about 25 years, I think. At the times, our children, when they reach that age, they hate schools and the colleges because of the outside world. I think outside world is very tempting. It has got its evils, and there are a lot of dangers and temptations. So I would like him to put, if any career first than social life. I know the other one is Lillian Gasheri. Gasheri, she is also thoughtful, handiworking. She listens to me and she obeys orders. I would like to say she has a bright future, and I'm sure, I pray that she doesn't stay long and give up employment. I would like those able children of mine, if possible, to assist the two, especially the remaining two, to be able to come into line and perhaps be a bit on their own, because as of now, there's nothing much happening about them. All of them have got adequate education, I believe, and they can't, with the seriousness, they can't lack something to do. Now we have my grandson, Munene. Munene is the son of late son Kennedy. I know my able children are taking care of his education, and that is commendable. I'm sure God will assist that boy to grow well and be a remembrance to me of Ken. To always keep Ken's memory living in the presence of Munene, especially doing well in life, because what I might have promised Ken will go to Munene. I think that's my duty. And thank you. Other people in my close relationship is my brother Bernard Gituma, who is about 2.5 years younger than me. He also retired some time back. Since we were small children, we have been together. Remember, we were left by my mother, two of us. And We have been inseparable since then. We have moved together. What do we do? If we have a piece of land, we divide wherever it is. Even when he was in school, I didn't continue with the Kenya School of Law because of him. And we trust each other, and we respect each other. His children and my children have no issues. We have what I would say, each one being his brother's keeper. And pray God has given that long time together without any friction at all. It is for the betterment of even our families and children. There is one important thing that I wish to say. You see, when I lost my first wife, Agnes came into my life, and she found some of my children quite young. She really took care of them, and I think they have not noticed, except the loss, the great loss, the care was okay. I knew it, although I was away, out of home on the job. Agnes took care of all my children very, very well. And I should commend her for that. They didn't complain, and she took care like the real mother. And this has been seen by the children every time there is an occasion. They keep on remembering that, and I also wish to extend that appreciation to my wife, Agnes. And praise God that we remain that way. She's a loving lady, and I love her. Thank you. I would like to say that when I'm next to God, the Creator, I will whisper in His ear to bless my children, because they love me as their father and their mother. Amen.